Hello, my name is Alex Wright, and today I just want to take the time to tell my story to storytostory.com. I was born Alex LaShawn Wright. When my mom named me, she named me after my dad in 1975, whose name was Alex, and after my sister's dad, whom she was with at that time, whose last name was Wright. So my name was Alex Wright. Growing up, I had a close relationship with my father, whose name was Alex at that time, and I used to go visit him in Cleveland a lot. Used to travel from Detroit to Cleveland, from Alabama to Cleveland, and spend time with him mainly during the summer times until when I was about 11 and a half, my mom stopped letting me go over to Cleveland to visit him. Not really giving no explanation why. It was just a decision that she made. So when I was around about 14 or 13 and a half, we got in the car one day from Detroit. My mom said, "Let's travel. We're going to Cleveland to see your dad." And I was, happy. Young man, hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and we get in the car and we travel over to Cleveland. We drove up to a convenience store, and she said, "Wait here." And she went inside, and when she came out with an older gentleman with a grin on his face, about big as the sun. And she asked me to get out the car. And she said, "This is your granddad." So of course, 13 and a half year old young man, I was like, yes, I never had actually met my granddad. So when I got out, this man gave me a hug as if he had never seen me, which he hadn't his whole life, but as if it was a different type of hug, as if he was looking for me my whole life. And he talked to me a lot during that time period. He told me my dad wasn't around, but he would be back soon. To sort of fast forward, when I finally met my dad later on that night, he came walking up. It wasn't the gentleman I had known my whole life by the name of Alex. And at that time, it started to process in my head as a young man that Alex was not my dad. My dad was the gentleman that was walking up, whose name is Lim Hunt III. The gentleman that I had met, the older gentleman, was Lim Hunt Jr., who was my granddad, who had not seen me since I was a baby. He had not seen me since I was born, and my mom took me away when we moved out of Cleveland. So during that time, I was really going through a lot of challenges internal, because I really couldn't understand, where Alex played a part in my life, where Mr. Wright, who was my sister's dad, played a part in my life. And at this time, my mom was also married to my younger brother's father, who was also in my life. So knowing that, my granddad really took some time, because I spent a lot of time with him over in Cleveland, because my dad was going through his trials and tribulations at that time in his life. My real dad, Lim Hunt, was going through trials and tribulations, and he was on drugs. So even though I had just met him for the first time in my life, he never really got to spend a lot of time with me. It was time that we just never got to spend together. But my granddad stepped in, who was a business owner in Cleveland, had done very well for himself over the years. A lot of people in that area knew him and knew of him. He sat down many hours, many nights, and explained to me that my dad was going through his trials and tribulations, and he was not able to be the father that he needed to be. So my granddad sort of stepped in as that father figure. With that being said, my granddad went to my mom when I was 16 and told her he wanted to change my name, because he was the first one that really stepped up and said, "I understand what's going on here, and I don't want my grandson to have the name of two different men that have nothing to do with his life," which was Alex Wright. So my mom agreed, and they changed my name legally. I was a child, so I had no say-so in the situation, in the matter. And they changed my name to Lim LaShawn Hunt IV. So you can imagine being in your senior year of high school, because at this time I was living in Cleveland, and your name go from being Alex Wright your whole life to now Liam Hunt the fourth. It was hard for me to explain to even my classmates because they really couldn't comprehend. Neither could I. So a lot of people had no idea that at the age 17, I was going through an identity crisis. Never talked to anyone about it because most of my family on my mom's side called me Alex. All of my family on my dad's side, my real dad's side, called me Liam. And I really didn't have identity to understand who I was, because it was never really explained to me how, Alex even came involved with my life back in the days. It was sort of one of those things that was just laid out. This is your real dad. This is who it is. This is what it is. When I started to even fill out my college applications, it was so weird because some of them I used to fill out Alex Wright. Some of them I used to fill out Liam Hunt the fourth. My official birth certificate at that time said Liam Hunt the fourth, but can you imagine using a name Alex Wright for 16 years and then all of a sudden change it? Alex was still within me, so I kept on using it. Time passed. One thing about it, as I was going through my identity crisis and my sort of challenge internally, as a young man, I never blamed my mom. And that's part of my story. Because I don't know what it was like, and I never asked her what it was like in 1975 when she had to have her second child at the age 20 to take me away from who was my real dad and my grandparents, and then tell me that Alex was my dad. And she did that, and I know why, because she didn't want me to grow up not thinking that I had a father figure in my life. Because, growing up and not even knowing who your father is worse than anything in the world. So she told me Alex was my dad at that time to sort of help me be able to move forward in life. But never once did I blame her when I was 17. And I felt like I was going through all these challenges with my name crisis. With my dad, I had started to develop a lot of anger towards my real dad, because when I finally get to meet him in life, he was not a father figure to me because he was on drugs. But my granddad, like I say, stepped in and helped fix that. But I forgave my mom because I loved that lady, loved her to death, would give my life for her. So I never once looked at her and say, it's because of you that, I'm confused about who my dad. No, part of my life was about forgiving. And I sort of prayed every night at the age 16 and 17 before I went to college, and I prayed to my Heavenly Father. So I was confused about who my real father on earth was and going through that challenge. So I prayed to my Heavenly Father that he sort of give me the strength. The application that got accepted was the name Alex Wright. So right before I went to college, I sat down and I said to myself, you have to make a decision. And the decision is, who are you going to be? Liam LaShawn Hunt IV or Alex Wright? Now, I had a lot of anger, like I mentioned, towards my dad because of his situation. I had to learn to get past that in life. But because of that, I didn't want to be Liam Hunt IV. Not because of my granddad, because I love that man to death. He did so much for me, and the reason why I'm sitting here today. At the age 17, I sat down, I wrote on a piece of paper, and I created me a character. And this character was who I wanted to be. So that character I named Alex Wright. I took the thing that pained me most in life, the troubled thing that caused me the most pain in life, the name of two different men, Alex and Mr. Wright. And I said, this is who I'm going to be. So I took that pain and I stuck it right in front of me, and I said, I'm going to use this name. But in order to use this name, if it's going to be my character, I sort of created principles to it. And at the age 17, I wrote down the principles that I wanted Alex Wright to live by. And a lot of those principles at that time was anti of who my dad was. So I wrote down on a piece of paper, I did not want to do drugs. I wrote down on a piece of paper that I always wanted to be a father to my children. I wrote down on a piece of paper that I would never let anything break me in life. And I would learn to forgive. A lot of these things that I wrote down, and I said, Alex Wright was going to be my character, and that's who I became. So when I went off to college, had a successful college career, I went on to corporate America. I started to move forward. A lot of people, especially in corporate America, as I was starting to rise as a young male in corporate America, they just couldn't understand my work ethic. They couldn't understand who I was. And in dealing with any corporate environment, I went through a lot of challenges where a lot of people tried to break me. But the thing that they could never understand why I would never fold. What they was trying to break never existed. Alex Wright was a character of whom I created. And inside that character and that rules, I would never fold and I would never give up. So when people attacked me, whether it was personally or whether it was physically, I could never fold because part of that character existence was to never give up. I started to move forward and I started to, really go after the things that I wanted to achieve in life. And finally, at one point, I sit down because, a lot of people we go through life and we go through challenges and we don't learn to forgive people, right? And at one point when I became a grown man, I sat down and I said, I want my mom to know, because me and her never had this talk. I wanted her to know that decision she made back in those days, it was for the betterment of me. And it made me who the man I was. It made me who the man I am today. And if it wasn't for her bravery of introducing me to my real dad, my real grandparents, then I would not never understood what it was like to be a businessman. My granddad taught me that. He taught me what it was like to achieve anything you wanted in life. She taught me what it was like to gain strength. And regardless of whatever you deal with, you don't blame others. So I wrote a book because I wanted to make sure that she understood that. And it was a book that she got to read as she was feeling ill in life. But even when she was at her illest moment, she got to read that book and she got to understand and feel that joy. My point is this. My point is real simple. That in life, and I say it in my book, in life we all go through trials. We all go through journeys. Inside of us all, we have betrayal. We have forgiveness. We have faith, prejudgment, deception, forgiveness, betrayal, and trial. We have all of those things inside of us as a human being. But most of all, we must learn to heal. And in order to move forward in life, you have to learn to heal. Part of my healing was accepting my situation and not blaming others. I used a name that's not my family name. I used the name of the character that I created because it reminds me every day that I'm never to fold. It reminds me every day that I'm never to give up. I'm still Lim Hunt IV, but I use Alex Wright because of who I wanted to be, and I created that person as a man. Hopefully, someone will hear my story, a young man, a young woman that's growing up with a similar situation, and will say to themselves, you know what? If he made it, I can make it. Hopefully, someone will be able to hear something good, because I hear good from people's stories every day, stories that help me move forward. But for now, I thank you guys for listening. Alex Wright, aka Lim Hunt IV.